Hey everybody, George here. How you doing? I wanted to show you guys today how I string up my Floyd Rose guitars and also how I adjust the strings. There are times where you put a set of strings on and maybe it's a heavier gauge, and no matter what you do, you keep getting either all sharp or all flat. So sometimes you have to go in the back and adjust the springs on it. So I'm just going to go over a few things that I like to do. Okay, let's start by taking the screws off here. And what I like to do with these is I like to keep them in order because you're going to get wear over time, the gauge of based on the gauge of the string. So you don't want to put one of these flat pieces of metal that have a thicker wear spot on them from the heavier strings on the lighter strings, because over time it'll be easier for them to slip if something comes loose. So I try to keep these the same way they came off and the same directions, because sometimes they fit both ways. Okay, we are going to loosen the first string. What I like to do is keep, some people, I've even seen guitar techs do this, they take all the strings off, but with the Floyd Rose, I like to do one string at a time and keep that tension on those springs, and it's less of a pain in the butt. I'm gonna get the Floyd Rose on here so we can move this around easily. You can just lift that up with that. You can just Alright, we can just lift that right out of there with the Floyd Rose whammy bar, and that makes it a lot easier to tighten this up. Okay, we got it snug, and make sure that your string is in the middle of the block. And I like to tighten them. You don't want to kill it and strip the threads, but you want it tight. So I would definitely not as hard as you can. I would say to where you feels like you're gonna do some damage if you keep going. Don't jack down too hard on it because you will strip those threads. So it's important to get a feel for how much tension you want. Enough to where you feel like you're adding, a few pounds of pressure to it. Then you want to stop at that point. Okay, and what I always do is I find that if I go the space of the frets and leave that much string on it, so I would say that's about 1.5 to 2 inches. Grab it, give it a cut. Once we get it in, okay, the string, normally you would just bend it down and wrap it, but if you bend it the opposite way that the string is being wrapped, like so, hold it in place and then tighten it, it creates like a lightning bolt shape, or almost like an S. And what that does is, see, it locks it in. So when I pull on that, if these bolts come loose, that string isn't gonna go anywhere. And you don't want too much wrap up here. So when you cut that inch and a half string, you're only gonna get 2 wraps. And that's all you need with it locked in like this. And what I do is I make sure and go over once and then under once. And that locks it right in. Look at that. And that's for all guitars. That will hold those 2 turns, and it won't bind up in there and go slip in and out because it's fighting all those string wraps in there. So that's how I do that. I'll just show you that. Somebody showed me that, or I saw it on YouTube, and it's just works so great. Don't tie it in a knot. I hate when people do that. Well, some guitars you'll do that, and no matter, you'll get it in tune, 440 or whatever you're tuning to, and it goes sharp. No matter how many times you drop the strings loose or tighten them up, it always goes a little sharp. Or the opposite, it'll always go a little flat. And what's happening there, let me pull the spring out of here, is your springs back here need adjusted. Okay? And it's basically, this spring tension determines where your Floyd Rose is going to sit with that tension of your strings. And sometimes you're going to get a problem with this sinking in too deep or too far up. So you're going to have to adjust your springs for that. And in order to do that, you flip the guitar over. It's much easier doing it. Okay, if you're having a problem like this, loosen all your strings again. Not all the way, just loosen them enough to get a little slack on them. And you go back here and you want to tighten. It's usually a Phillips screw. And you want to get in there and tighten this. If it's pulling flat, and you want to loosen it if it's pulling sharp. And what that does, if I loosen this, it's going to take the tension off this, and it'll allow it to flatten back out or raise back up depending on what you need. So tightening it if your guitar is going flat, and loosen it if your guitar is going sharp. And make sure you do it evenly. You don't want to do 2 or 3 turns on this side and 2. You want to keep the springs a little bit even. You might find a little variance sometimes if you're getting one side, like your low E seems to be only doing it. You can go in there and just give this like a tiny bit of a turn. You want to do like maybe 1/8 of a turn at a time and check it, because if you go too much, it's just going to pull your Floyd Rose in or make it too loose. So now there's all kinds of things you can do. You can change your springs. You can put different spring locations too. So there's been times where no matter what I did, I just couldn't get it to work. I would take this and spread it out to the ends and try a different tension. They can be tricky sometimes, but if you get them working, they're fabulous. In this day and age, most of the Floyd Roses that come out are pretty decent. I hope some of this helped you guys out. Some of you people just playing a Floyd Rose for the first time, be patient. I have spent a lot. There's been times where I've spent 20-30 minutes toying with the springs, but the best thing you can do is to learn how to do it, is to just try it. Thanks for watching. Enjoy.